Now that it's been confirmed that Daniel Ricciardo will indeed be loaned from Red Bull to AlphaTauri, starting from the Hungarian Grand Prix, replacing Nyck de Vries, it raises some interesting questions. We have to wonder what the true implications are, what Red Bull aims to accomplish, and what this means for Perez, as well as for Daniel Ricciardo's future. So join us as we delve deeper into the news of the season so far, which is the return of Daniel Ricciardo on the grid. It's clear that something promising transpired at the tyre test during the British Grand Prix, where Daniel Ricciardo got a chance to pilot the RB19 during a Pirelli tyre test. According to Red Bull, his quickest lap during that session would have been sufficient to place him on the front row at the British Grand Prix, a feat that Perez was unable to replicate. It was a performance far beyond what even Nyck de Vries could potentially deliver. However, there are a few issues to consider. One is that the specific tyre they used during the test is unknown, which could skew the data. But despite this ambiguity, the outcome remains positive. Another noteworthy point is that Ricciardo was able to perform so well in the RB19 despite only having simulator experience this year and being absent from the grid for all of 2023. His ability to clock a front row lap time during this tyre test will undeniably increase the pressure on Perez. Sergio Perez has been having difficulty reaching Q3 in the last 5 sessions, a fact that might be excusable if he were driving for AlphaTauri. However, considering he's behind the wheel of the most dominant Red Bull car we've ever seen, the same one Max Verstappen is using to dominate the championship, such performance is unlikely to be tolerated for long by a competitive team like Red Bull. Currently, the narrative is that Max is essentially leading the team, and they just need a solid second driver, thus reducing the pressure. But this could shift in 2024 as other teams such as Aston, Mercedes and even McLaren are making significant progress and catching up. If Red Bull starts feeling the heat, they'll require a reliable number 2 driver. Regrettably, Perez is proving to not be the driver they need to accumulate points, secure double podium finishes and clinch additional trophies. In this scenario, Red Bull could consider giving Daniel Ricciardo a chance without necessarily jeopardizing their prospects for 2024. That being said, it's important to note that both Red Bull and Christian Horner, along with Perez himself, have voiced strong support for him. They're aware of his potential and are committed to enhancing his performance in the future. Therefore, it's unlikely we'll hear any sensational driver change rumours, like Perez being replaced mid-season by Ricciardo, or of an announcement confirming Perez's exit for 2024. However, depending on his performance from now until the holiday season, we could see a situation similar to Albon's unfolding. While many might point out that Perez is contracted through 2024, it's important to note how Red Bull operates. They could indeed remove him from the car and continue to pay him as he's contracted to Red Bull itself and not to the individual teams, which allows them the flexibility to rotate their drivers. As far as I'm aware, Max Verstappen is the only one directly contracted to the Red Bull racing team. The commendable performance of Alonso and Aston this season only underscores the lackluster year Perez is having. He's at risk of being surpassed by the likes of Alonso if he doesn't step up, and even Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton is closing the gap in the number 2 spot in the standings. Ricciardo's move to AlphaTauri isn't positioned as a replacement for Perez. Red Bull has been unequivocal in stating that isn't their intention. Instead, it's a strategy to test Yuki Tsunoda against Daniel Ricciardo, and naturally to provide Ricciardo with half a season of races to regain his comfort in Formula 1. If Ricciardo managed to clock the fastest lap during the tyre test, which placed him alongside Verstappen on the front row, their aim is to get him back into the car to refine his racecraft. But primarily, they've expressed that this move is designed to evaluate him alongside Yuki Tsunoda. With Yuki's solid performance this year, it also gives AlphaTauri an opportunity to assess whether it's a case of Nyck de Vries underperforming or if Yuki Tsunoda is ready to be promoted to the main team. Then we have another guy in the form of Liam Lawson, whose test in the RB18 and his performances in Super Formula are sending Red Bull a clear signal. Like Max Verstappen, they could easily place him in the top team, so there's no urgent need for additional testing. On the other hand, AlphaTauri needs to gauge Yuki Tsunoda's capabilities. He had a few seasons where his frequent crashes and struggles against Gasly were concerning, But now, as he steps up as a team leader, Red Bull seeks to benchmark him against a known entity that they can coach and train to master the car, a feat that McLaren apparently couldn't achieve. A few reasons explain why all this is happening. Primarily, Red Bull wants to ensure they have a good pool of drivers who could step in to replace Perez if need be. If Perez maintains his current form throughout the season, Red Bull must be ready to quickly swap in a suitable driver. Having Liam Lawson in Super Formula is a brilliant way for Red Bull to assess his potential. His victory in his debut race there shows his adaptability. After 3 practice sessions and testing, they have a good grasp of his capabilities. Personally, I believe Lawson is a shoo-in for AlphaTauri in 2024, regardless of other circumstances. Now, the primary challenge for Red Bull is to evaluate whether Yuki Tsunoda is up to the task and potentially promotable to a Red Bull seat. While a reliable number 2 would be ideal for them at the moment, their long-term vision involves looking beyond that. If Ricciardo outperforms Tsunoda, they could retain Tsunoda in AlphaTauri for a while longer to see if he improves, and bring in another junior such as Liam Lawson to partner with him, while Daniel Ricciardo takes Perez's place and re-establishes himself as a strong number 2. Even though Ricciardo had a tough stint at McLaren, we have to consider the possibility that they just couldn't harness his full potential, especially given the promising laps he's been clocking in the RB19, as reported by Red Bull. Ultimately, Red Bull is in search of either a robust number 2 or a successor to Max Verstappen. The question then becomes, what are their plans for 2024 and 2025? Red Bull now embarks on a mission over the next 6 to 18 months to prepare Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo for a potential seat, or at the very least determine which would be the best fit. This forms part of their long-term strategy for post-2028, when Max Verstappen might, albeit unlikely, part ways with the team. As for De Vries, while I can feel sad and terrible for him and believe that he was faced with a hard decision, while still understanding the thinking of the Red Bull management in the decision they ultimately made. Nyck came in as a 20-year-old driver with years of testing practice as an F2 and FE champion who showed a lot of promise in the Monza drive and was touted as one of the mature racers. AT needed that kind of driver, especially because even last year in situations like Canada and Silverstone, Yuki had dumb crashes. They didn't even much care if he wasn't immediately on pace with Yuki, just don't keep having dumb incidents and crashes with everyone, especially when Nyck himself said he isn't a typical rookie. And that's exactly what kept happening. Bad pace, miles off Yuki, and couldn't stay away from incidents. Literally crashing or spinning multiple times on his own, it was getting embarrassing. Then you have the other side of this coin. Yuki is improving rapidly, getting consistent, but you want to see if this is simply Mick destroying Mazepin or Russell destroying Kubica. And to do that, RB needs to put in an experienced driver in that seat, who can prove a good benchmark for both Yuki and the AT04. If Yuki still keeps smashing Daniel, then that's basically curtains for his career, and RB can take Yuki in consideration for RB's second seat by 2025. If Daniel smashes Yuki and showed that he's better and the car has higher potential too, then you move on to possibly Iwasa or Lawson in the AlphaTauri for next season alongside Daniel or Yuki, depending on what they do with Checo. There's a lot of considerations in this. Red Bull is a global brand, and this isn't Haas where Mick can embarrass you with millions of people watching every weekend and you still keep him around for the season. So, time will tell if Red Bull made the right decision, but for now, we can be excited about the return of the Honey Badger. Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Do you think Red Bull made the right choice sacking De Vries and replacing him with Ricciardo? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.